All right, so our next speaker is of great value to the atheist movement. I don't know if you all saw, but I'm sure many of you did. There was a study he did not so long ago that kind of made the rounds, and the headline in a lot of it was "Atheists Fuck Better." So, Darrel Ray.
Well, that was actually the journalist saying that I did not say that. I wouldn't have gotten away with it scientifically. I couldn't quite back that up. I'd like to, but I couldn't quite back it up. I'd say about 20% of you have heard my Pastafarian sex prayer. How many of you heard the Pastafarian sex prayer? Well, good. So that means the rest of you haven't. So would you all bow your heads and pray with me, please? All right. Dear flying spaghetti monster, we thank you for giving us sex and sexuality, whether homo or heterosexual, bi or trans, for not making us like those uptight Christians, Muslims, Mormons, and Baptists. We thank you for wonderful masturbatory fantasies and for the pornography upon which they're often based. FSM, we ask that you grant us sex partners, lovers, wives, and husbands that know where our G-spots, our clitoris, and the sweet spot on our penis is. Grant us long, loving foreplay with deep, wet kisses, followed by huge orgasms and loving cuddles after. Grant us the courage and wisdom to communicate openly and honestly with our partners and to give them more pleasure than we receive, for we know it is better to give than to receive. Your newliness, we do not need 72 virgins. In fact, we ask that you send us no virgins, for we don't want to have to train them. Unless, of course, they're very, very willing to be trained. We especially plead today that you not send us any repressed Christian virgins, male or female, for they will only feel guilty and cause great problems with their abstinence-only training. Your posthumous, we ask that you give us the wisdom to understand and appreciate our partner's kinks, or lack thereof. Whether foot worship or spanking, ropes or talking dirty, help us to appreciate their full sexuality and lead us not into temptation and judgment and scorn for others when their sexual preferences are not ours. We ask in the name of Roman for retribution, shame, and scorn on pedophile priests, hypocritical ministers sleeping with the choir director, and gay-bashing closeted ministers, etc. Oh, Spaghetti-O. We ask that you send condoms and birth control in abundance and your blessings to the many dedicated workers at the Trojan Condom Factory and Planned Parenthood. In the name of Dan Savage and Greta Christina, we pray, for they are the true gods and goddesses of this world. Do I hear a ramen? A ramen, a ramen. All right. So I like starting off my talks with that particular prayer because I think it sets the mood of where we need to go. We are not Christians, and we shouldn't be acting like Christians. I have a whole talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that specifically today, but this talk is going to help us understand a bit about us as evolution, as creatures, as products of evolution. Let me turn this around so I can see easier. And the name of my talk is Sexy Evolution, What the Pope Doesn't Know About Sexuality, which is an awfully lot, actually, but, okay, there we go. Much better, okay. So, there is evidence, I'm going to tip this whole thing over in a minute. There's evidence throughout your body of evolution. Your breasts, the shape of your penis, the shape of your vagina and clitoris, the chemistry and semen and the vaginal fluid. The sounds you make when you're having an orgasm is actually evidence of evolution. The viscosity of semen, the composition of sperm, all those things are clear evidence that we are evolving creatures as sexual creatures. So let's begin at the bottom line. Why do we have sex? Well, nobody knows positively why we have sex, but there's a heck of a lot of evidence, and I think we're coming to some final conclusions that the reason we have sex is because of parasites. Literally. sex allows us to recombine our genetics so that parasites don't get ahead of us. So if the parasites can catch up with us, then we're going to be extremely prone to disease. And parasites are a huge problem. Everyone in this room has parasites in them right now. Some parasites are more benign or less harmful to us, but we don't want to feed other parasites any more than we have to. When you don't have sex, you end up with the problem the banana has. Bananas, some of you may know, bananas pretty much went out of existence in the 1930s because of the Panama virus. The Panama virus killed all the variety of banana that was being used at that time. And it's because bananas are cloned. They don't reproduce through sexuality. Now they could, but because we have, through our agricultural practices, we've pretty much made it so the banana can't reproduce sexually or won't reproduce sexually, and we end up creating a cloned banana that can't resist new pathogens. So our previous speaker could talk to this much better than I can. So there's probably a lot of evidence for us having sex as biological creatures to keep ahead of pathogens. So now that we know why we have sex, let's talk a bit about how sex has been evolving for the last billion years or so. Sex organs are among the most rapidly evolving organs in our body. They are constantly changing in terms of evolutionary change. And Carl Linnaeus, the great biologist and early classifier, found that the best and easiest way to classify, for example, plants, especially flowering plants, was by their sex organs. And that's all a plant is. That's all a flower is the sex organs of that particular plant. And I like photography. I especially like taking pictures of flowers. So these are some of my, isn't that a cool one with that bee on there? I just think that's really neat. But see, these are not that, some of these flowers are very closely related, and yet their sex organs are very different. So animals also have sex organs that are evolving and changing, just like flowers. You could almost classify mammals by their sex organs, just like you could classify flowers by their sex organs, because they are that much different. Now we're going to look at a specific animal. We're going to look at a number of animals today, but the first one we're going to look at is a little Argentine bluebill. Now, if anybody ever says size doesn't matter, don't tell that to a duck. This guy has got one, this guy's got one that's as big as he is, as long as he is, not as big as he is. Ducks have amazing reproductive systems. Unlike, only 3% of birds actually have a penis and a vagina. The other 97% don't. For some reason, waterfowl seem to be more attuned to having penises and vagina. But they're very different kind of penises and vaginas than what we're used to. And they run, our system runs off of the blood pressure. You guys that have heart problems, or you need some extra Viagra because of the blood pressure issues. Well, ducks run off the lymph system. They don't run off the blood pressure system. So it's the lymph system that pressurizes their penis. Now, for those of you who are a little squeamish or don't like nudity, we are going to see some duck porn here. So if you need to get up and leave, now's the time to do it. I'll play this a couple times just to show you what a duck penis looks like. Watch it carefully. Okay? Now that is at 1/10 of normal speed. This has been slowed down 10 times. Let's look at it one more time. Watch the ejaculation at the end if you didn't notice. Isn't that cool? Look how long that is. Man, that's the John Holmes of ducks right there. Well, for years, biologists have been wondering what's going on with ducks. You notice that penis is corkscrewed, and it's very long. Another interesting thing about male ducks is they lose their penises when mating season is over. Isn't that interesting? They grow a new one every year. In addition, if there's a lot of competition out there, the low-status ducks will grow smaller penises and not use them as often or as much, and the high-status guys get really big ones. They're the John Holmes guys that get as big as they need. And the low-status ones will reabsorb their penises earlier and maybe not reproduce that particular year. Here is an internal look at the vagina of a duck and the penis of a duck. For years, biologists wondered what was going on with male ducks. Why did they have a long and corkscrewed penis? And they couldn't figure it out. Until finally a woman, a biologist out of, I believe, Edinburgh, Scotland, decided, well, let's look at the female side of it. Nobody ever thought about looking inside the female. All they did was look at the male. So when they looked inside the female, they found this. You'll notice this is corkscrewed too, but it's corkscrewed in the opposite direction. Isn't that interesting? Another little fact about ducks is they rape a lot. Ducks are raping creatures. I once had ducks. I have a big pond in my front yard, about 1.5 acres. I had ducks. They were all the time screwing. I mean, they're especially when the female's ready. And the female, you could tell she liked one guy, and she kind of waddled. They have cute little waddles when they're in love. She would waddle around in front of some of these, from a particular male. She would mate with him. Well, that, of course, attracts the attention of all the other males. As soon as he gets off, she's not interested in anybody else, but those males jump on. And you'll have 3 males holding her down and raping her. So Dr. Brennan wondered, well, let's look at what's going on there. If they're raping her, then that means they're getting in on the reproductive act as well. But yet she seems to really favor this one guy. Dr. Brennan looked at the progeny, the genetics of the babies that came out of the female, and what she found was 97% of all the babies' eggs laid by that female were fertilized by the guy she liked. The other 3% were fertilized by the guys that were raping her. How did that work? Well, you can see it right here. These guys can really pull a penis out and stick it in fast. And they can ejaculate fast. They've got to, because she's resisting. And she's got this corkscrew going the opposite direction, and it's got all sorts of little pockets to trap semen she doesn't want. She pretty much controls her own reproduction against, even though she's being raped against her will. And it's very clear. I could tell she did not like, in my pond, she did not like being raped by these guys. Some female ducks have been drowned. You watch them on the water being raped, and they will force the female underneath the water. And you could even see how they might be drowned for that. Dr. Brennan then took male ducks and saw if she could get them to ejaculate within each one of these different arrangements here, and she found that this one, of course, was the easiest to ejaculate in, and the one that went the same direction as the guy's penis. But the other two, one that had all the pockets and the one that was spiraling in the wrong direction, it was much more difficult for the drake, the duck, to get semen up into the female. Now, why am I talking about ducks? What's that got to do with people? Well, this is an example of what is known in evolution and biology as antagonistic coevolution. It simply means the fight between the male and the female. In this case, the fight not between the organisms, but the fight between their genitalia. The female is evolving her genitalia to resist the rape and to reproduce with the one guy she likes. And the male has developed this genitalia that can get in and get out against her will, still get, perhaps in this case, 3%. And maybe in eons past, they were able to get more because she hadn't evolved that way or as advanced. Now, we look at ducks across the spectrum. All ducks are doing something like this. But the blue Argentine has got its own particular approach. Other ducks take different approaches. But it's always an antagonistic evolution between these two sexes, the males and the female. It tells us that every species has a mating strategy for the males and for the females. And they are not necessarily contingent on each other. They're antagonistic with each other. even, as we'll see a bit later, even in humans. Here is a whole set of penises. And you can just tell, these are all from mammals. So each one of those shows a different configuration. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I bet you never saw all those different kinds of penises before. I mean, look at your own if you're a guy. It doesn't look like any of those, I don't think. Here's the spiny-headed anteater. Now, this guy has four heads, if you will. And these two, the ones on the outside don't squirt any semen. The ones two on the inside do. But when he has sex first time, it squirts out of this one. He has sex the second time, it squirts out of that one. He alternates back between the two. Now, you have to make love very carefully with this guy, if that's the girl anyway. That's clearly an evolutionary adaptation, as clearly different as what we saw in the duck, male and female. So, sex, what this shows us is sex is actively evolving, and it's even evolving in the great apes. And there are four great apes, of course. We know the gorilla, the chimpanzee, the bonobo, that at one point in time was thought to be really just a chimpanzee, but it's not. It's genetically different, in many ways, behaviorally very different, and of course, humans. So, if you were looking at the strategies of the four great apes and comparing penises, here's what you would look at if they were vegetables. This is the gorilla's penis. This is the bonobo or chimp's penis, and this is the human's penis. Isn't that interesting? So size does matter among gorillas, but not size of the penis, size of the body. The bigger the male, the more he can control his harem. And a gorilla's got several females in his harem if he's the lucky guy. Of course, there's several unlucky guys that don't get anybody in their harem. I could tell you a lot about gorillas, but that's not our talk today, but it's kind of fun. Each primate has their own sexual strategy. Here's the gorilla's sexual strategy. It's polygamous, one male, many females. It has a high level of sexual dimorphism. That means there's a big difference between the size of the male and the female, almost double. Females are very mobile. A female may join a silverback and stay with him for 4, 5, or 6 years, but the females can get up and leave. They're not married. They can get divorced just by walking away, and they do. And the average gorilla female will probably have 3 or 4, quote, husbands in her lifetime. And she'll sneak off to have dalliances every now and then with guys that she shouldn't be playing with, by the way. Lots of adultery among gorillas. Sex lasts less than a minute among gorillas. Ladies, if you don't like the way it's going now, it's worse if you're a gorilla. They've only got 1.5 inch long penis, but that's fine because the gorilla doesn't have a lot of sex. And since the male is controlling all these females, he just has it whenever he really wants it, impregnates her, and keeps the other guys away. So he doesn't need to do lots of activities to make sure they're his kids, or at least he thinks that. There's some deception going on here sometimes, though. He has very small testes. It's only half the size of the human, and he only mates when the female is in heat or in estrus. And I think I said that earlier. Sex takes on some other functions in species. Now we're going to understand that. The gorilla actually has a pretty common strategy for reproduction, but different. It's actually more common among other species. When we look at the other primates, we're going to see that they have a different set of strategies to reproduce. Think about this. Every species has a specific way of dealing with sex. And even if it's not sex, let's say your hand. Your hand did not evolve to hold a pencil and write or to type on a typewriter or a computer. That wasn't its purpose, but we have adapted it to that. Well, what we're going to see a little bit later is humans have taken sex and used it in a different way, a way that gorillas have not used it, and dogs don't use it, and horses don't use it. We are using sex kind of like we use our hands to type with. I'll explain that in a minute. Well, some people may try it. I haven't been. So sex in the three other primates, bonobos, chimps, and humans, is used for bonding, conflict management, and to establish dominance hierarchies, especially in the chimp. So we see in the chimp's very interested in who's the guy that gets to mate. Now chimps don't mate like gorillas. The dominant male gets first shot at any of the females in the clan. The next level down, dominant male gets second shot at all the males. If you're on the bottom of the pecking order among the chimpanzees, you may not get to screw anybody until you find a way around, out in the bush where nobody's watching, and she's ready for you. The chimp has a larger penis than the gorilla. It also has testes that are twice the size of humans. Chimps can produce enormous amounts of semen. And the male mates with many, a high-status male will mate many times, but only with females who are in estrus. He's not too interested in women that are not, in females that are not in estrus. And males make status alliances so that it allows 2 and 3 males to have access to all the females against the other possible competitors. Sex only lasts 30 seconds among chimps. It's getting worse, isn't it? Now bonobos I think are fascinating creatures. In bonobo world, the female rules the roost. And they do it, while bonobo females are smaller than bonobo males, they rule by committee. So there may be 2 or 3 females that are high status, and they pretty much tell everybody how things are going to go. If a male gets out of line, the 2 or 3 females will gang up on him and put him in his place. Females leave the clan to join other clans when they get old enough, but males stay with their clan. So the mother-son relationship is very important among bonobos. And sex is everywhere. These folks will fuck anybody anytime. A bonobo, there is more sex, actually there's probably more sex between females, female to female sex, than there is almost any other combination. But there's sex between males and males, there's sex between females and males and females and females. Every combination of sex, and a lot of masturbation on top of that. Bonobos are enormously sexual. Many times a day they will have sex. Sounds like heaven to me, but I wasn't born in the right as a bonobo. They have a fairly large penis. It's the same size as the chimp. They also have huge testes, twice the size of ours, the same size as the chimps. And they mate almost any time with anyone. It matters not whether they're in estrus or not. Now, there's only 2 land species that mate any time, and that's bonobos and humans. Almost every other species on the planet mates only when the female is receptive. Sex only lasts 30 to 40 seconds, and there are thousands of sex acts for every live birth. I found this comic, I thought it was rather cute. At the zoo, says here that in bonobo societies, females are in charge, and sex rather than violence is used to keep order. He is reading this, of course, and she says, well, thank God we've evolved. Now let's look at the penis of the bonobo ape. This is a bonobo penis. That's actually 2 bonobo females enjoying one another. Their clitoris, a bonobo female's clitoris is about that big. Bonobo females love to rub their clitorises on each other, and they seem to have orgasm just like humans do. Franz de Waal says the expression on a bonobo female's face looks just like a human's face when she's having an orgasm. But yeah, I don't know if you can see that very clearly back there, but that penis doesn't look anything like mine. There's something going on there, isn't it? And we are very, very closely related to the bonobos. So it tells us that their mating strategy, based on just evolution of the sex organs, must be different than ours. Their mating strategy is to mate lots, create enormous amounts of semen, and literally flush the other guy out. That's the strategy. For both for both chimpanzees and for bonobos. If you produce more semen than the other guy and you screw the female enough times, you're going to win. You're going to win the genetic battle there, the reproductive battle. So I've kind of gone over the other three primates' strategies. So what's our strategy? Well, we can answer that by thinking about some questions. Why is the human penis so large? Why is the human penis shaped so differently from other primates? Why does human sex last so long? Why do humans have testes larger than gorillas but smaller than chimps and bonobos? Why does human sperm have a different kind of sperm in it? There's actually 3 different kinds of sperm within a human semen. Why do women menstruate? Why is the female reproductive tract so hostile to sperm? Now, isn't that interesting? The female reproductive tract is actually hostile to sperm. And why do women have breasts? That's the question I've been asking all my life. Moving right along. So you can see, just from those questions, and I cannot and won't answer all those questions, but I'd say all but one of those questions has been pretty solidly answered, I think, with the current science just in the last few years. You know, when I was back in graduate school, some of these questions were just like why women menstruate. There just was no answer. Nobody could figure that out. There was a blog not long ago by P.Z. Myers that showed some of the latest research, and I think we got a pretty solid answer to that now. So everything we see in humans can be found in other species. Everything you saw, everything you know about yourself, we can find some aspect of the human sexual strategy in some other species. There's absolutely nothing unique about us. The uniqueness is in the combinations of our sexuality, how we combine our strategy in a slightly different way. So, for example, we run off a pressure system. This is the human penis as it's getting up to erect. You'll notice that this particular guy looks like he's totally erect here. See the corona right there, the glands? You don't see that on chimps, you don't see that on bonobos, you don't see it on many other animals. There are some other animals, horses have them, some of the cetaceans have them. But what's that all about? Well, there's some insects that have bottle brushes for penises. You know what a bottle brush is, right? You do? You don't? You know a bottle brush you clean out? Well, some insects use a bottle brush to clean out the female, so that if somebody else is mated with a female, he can extract his semen and put his own in. Wow. A guy named Robin Baker said, this looks like a bottle brush. Let's see if it works that way. And Robin Baker took a fake penis, a dildo, put it in a vagina, a manufactured vagina, the kind you can get sex stores, and he put semen in a number of different viscosities, and he simply pumped it, right? What happened? 80% of the semen that was in there got pumped out, because folks, that is a pump. That is designed to pump semen out of the female. Now, why would that be designed to pump semen out if it hadn't been actually pumping semen out for about 1 million years? Part of our strategy has been to be a multi-mate species. The religion, and this is where religion comes in, religion tries to tell us that we are a monogamous species. There are almost no monogamous species on the face of this planet. A great book came out about 10 years ago called The Myth of Monogamy. Anybody read that book? Oh, it's a great book. I really enjoy it a lot. David Barash and Lipton were the 2 authors. And what they basically establish is, through genetics, we now know that a lot of species we thought were monogamous no longer are. Chances are you don't know a single monogamous human being. It's possible. In fact, it's actually likely that you don't know a single monogamous human being. Think about it. There's a fish. What's the name of the fish? Somebody will help me remember. That the male embeds himself in the female. And what? Anglerfish? The anglerfish, right. Now that's monogamy. Once he's embedded, she and he are going to be mating for life. I don't think any of us do that. I just drew a blank. There's one possible primate that's monogamous, but pardon?
Gibbons are right.
It's gibbons, okay, I'm sorry. It was the gibbons. Gibbons are probably monogamous, but even they are not strictly monogamous. Think about how many humans do you know have only had one mate for their whole life? One sex partner in their entire lifetime. It's actually pretty rare among humans. Now, you may raise your hand and say, well, I know people. Well, unless it's you, how would you know? So most time, I know people who found out they had kids years later who told me they'd been monogamous their whole life, and the kid wasn't from the woman or man that they were women, I guess he was married to. So people lie about this, and we know that. You know, they just don't tell us what they're really up to. So we can see that within our own strategy, humans have penises that act like a pump. Sex lasts for 4 to 10 minutes. Now, you saw how long sex lasts in all these other groups. Why would human sex last so long? Well, if you're going to pump the other guy's stuff out, you got to keep pumping until it's out, right? 30 seconds doesn't do it. And those other penises aren't designed to pump anything out. They're designed to flush everything out. Remember, we talked about the semen, copious amounts of semen. Bonobos and chimps produce copious amounts of semen to flush the other guy out, whereas we're using the bottle brush approach to pull the semen out of the female that we're mating with. There's been a lot of interesting research just in the last 10 years by several psychologists out of the University of Chicago and out of Manchester University in England to really flesh this whole idea out. And it's just fascinating to finally understand why we are the way we are, what our strategy is. But religion tells us, no, you're monogamous, you can't marry anybody else for life, and tries to convince us of that. And I'm here to tell you, we are a multi-mate species. We always have been, and we're probably going to continue to. The divorce rate among Baptist ministers is 50%. Now, if the Baptist ministers can't stay married to each other, that tells us something's going on. And it's probably our biology that's going on. It has nothing to do with what their Bible or their holy books say. You'll also notice that as soon as a man is finished, as soon as he has ejaculated his semen into the female, he deflates. Now, why would he deflate so quickly? He was having fun just 20 seconds ago because he didn't want to pump his own out. He wants to let his own go in there. He's just finished pumping the other guys out. But now he's got his own in there. He's going to deflate. Robin Baker, and among others, out of the University of Pennsylvania, found, Baker's in Manchester, but there's another group in the University of Pennsylvania that's looked at the types of sperm, and there's 3 different types of sperm. And there's some controversy about that. I'm not going to stand up here and say this is the final word, but I think there's quite a bit of evidence pointing to this. But there's 3 different kinds of sperm in human semen. We also know there's different kinds of sperm in chimp semen. There's different kinds of sperm in insect semen. This is not common just to primates. It's common to a wide range of animals in the animal kingdom. The different kinds of sperm, one is a fertilizing sperm. I think it's about 10% of the sperm are fertilizing. Another is a warrior sperm. It's actually programmed to find other guys' sperm and kill it. It's got chemicals that can kill other sperm. And there's a third kind that's a blocking sperm, and it builds coagulant. It builds a block, so you can't, if I'm in there, then the next guy can't get through the block. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's a whole war going on inside the female tract. And it's a war between the female and the male, but it's also a war between the males. It's all happening right inside of our bodies. I think this is just fascinating. So, this shows us that we are a multi-mate species. Now, what's that mean? It means that sex is really, what's all this strategy mean? Sex is for bonding and recreation. If you were a dog, you would have sex like the Pope tells you to have sex, only for procreation. If you were a cow, if you were an insect, all of these animals have sex only for procreation. And that's what the Pope says. So I'm going to submit here today that the Pope wants to have sex like an animal. The Pope wants to have us to have sex like a dog. course, he's never had sex or even masturbated once in his whole life. You don't believe that? Well, I don't either, but I'm just telling you. So when people tell you that they are monogamous or that humans are monogamous, all they're doing is buying into the religious propaganda. They themselves probably weren't monogamous. How many parents do you know of Christians that had lovers before they got married, but yet they tell their kids, don't have sex before marriage? And they flat lie to their kids about it. So, there are probably 10,000 acts of sex for every live birth among humans, which tells us sex is not for reproduction. It's kind of like our hand. We've now adapted our hand to type. We now have adapted sex to be more for bonding and for recreation, and for conflict management and for stress relief. I mean, sex has taken on a whole different set of tasks that other animals don't use. My dog does not have sex to relieve stress, but I do. My dog might masturbate. Well, I don't have a male dog, a female, but male dogs might masturbate, but they don't do it as often as much as we do. They might if they had hands, I don't know. Masturbation actually is a very functional thing, and yet the Catholic Church says you should not masturbate. You're going to hell. We have a priest in one of our recovering from religion groups, ex-priest, and he tells the story that he'd gone through 8 years of seminary, they go high school and whatever he did, 8 years, and he said, I could go about 30 days without masturbating, and then I'd jack off and say, oh no, I'm going to hell. I better go find a priest to confess to. And so he'd go confess to the priest, and okay, another 30 days, attention, bills. He has to jack off, and he has to go confess to the priest. Well, I guess after about eight years of this, he was at the zoo one day, and he noticed the chimpanzee was masturbating. And he said, wow, the Pope believes in evolution. That chimp's masturbating just like I do. He said that was the first step to me becoming an atheist, seeing a chimp masturbating in a zoo. The male masturbates to keep the pipes clean. Sperm's only good for about 5 days. If you don't keep it moving through the system, it dies. It clogs up. It doesn't work that well. So, masturbation makes sure that you as a male are ready to impregnate a woman with good, healthy, virile sperm. And if you're not masturbating, you're not keeping them flowing through and keeping them healthy. Female masturbation keeps the sexual response healthy and makes the woman more receptive and able to become aroused. It's just good practice on both sides. It relieves stress, and it actually produces sexual health. But as we can see, Christian sex is quite different. And I mean, and it doesn't have to just be Christian. It could be Muslim, it could be Mormon sex, and I do not believe Mormons are Christians. I don't care what they say. Anybody who thinks you get your own planet is not anything like I ever saw in a Christian. But we have allowed Christianity to define sex and sexuality. And I think that's our problem. We're atheists. We're not Christians. Why do we act like Christians? So the reason I wrote my book, Sex and God, was because I wanted us to start challenging some of the basic assumptions that we are living with every day. Assumptions that we got from the Pope, assumptions we got from Jerry Falwell or from Cotton Mather or whoever, assumptions that came straight from Jesus or St. Paul, and we have not questioned those assumptions. I know atheists that still feel guilty about masturbation. Well, you shouldn't feel any more guilty about masturbating than a chimpanzee or a bonobo does. It's a functional part of our biology. There's no rational reason to be embarrassed or have guilt around that. So where's that guilt coming from? It's coming from our early childhood training. We need to build our own framework. I would call it a secular framework for sexuality. And we are human beings. We are social creatures. We are social primates. And we're not going to go out and just start raping and pillaging and having sex with anybody we want. I don't know any atheists that do that. Adam asked me to announce that there would be an atheist orgy tonight in his room. Where is Adam? Okay, Adam. So see Adam if you want to know what the orgy is. I have been to so many of these conventions, I've yet to find where the orgy is. I guess they don't want me coming. I don't know why. Yeah, so I think we should celebrate our sexuality. We should celebrate a positive, natural sexuality as atheists. Sure, we have ethics around our sexuality. We do want to be responsible in our sexuality, but I'm telling you, Catholic sexuality and Protestant sexuality and Muslim sexuality is anything but ethical. It has enormous moral problems as far as I'm concerned. I mean, just in the treatment of women and the treatment of men, it's not just women that get treated badly in many cases. I want to encourage secularists to be open and proud about our sexuality and free of religious shame and guilt. I think we are unique. We are secular sexuals. It's a term I'm trying to propagate, a new meme, if you will. We are not tied to religious guilt and shame that the Christians are. We don't have to deal with the guilt and the shame that Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists have to deal with. And don't let anybody tell you Buddhists aren't guilt-ridden and shamed about sex. Except for California Buddhists. They might not be. But the rest of them, go to Thailand, a lot of sexual repression and misogyny in those cultures that are so-called Buddhists. So we are not Christians, so let's not act like Christians. It makes no sense for an atheist to have the sexual values of Christians or Muslims or any other religious group. So I can say this, I am a proud sex-positive atheist. I see nothing wrong with saying that out loud, and nothing wrong with defending that in public. For example, if I see somebody being racist, I will question that. I will challenge that. If I see somebody being sexist, I'm going to question that and challenge that. If I see somebody being sex negative, homophobic, I'm going to challenge that. That is, as far as I'm concerned, it's immoral, it's unethical. And I can do that by just being me. You know, one of the things I love about the gay community is they are out there. They're just proud, and they're open about their sexuality. Now, they weren't 15 or 20 years ago maybe, but you've noticed the gay community is really saying, I am gay, and I'm not hiding it anymore. I am out of the closet, and I'm not going to pretend. Well, I think we should be the same way. That's about our sexuality. We don't have to act like we're a monogamous species when we're not. If you had more lovers than the religionists have, then tell your kids, yeah, I had 3 lovers before I got married. I had 20 lovers before I got married. I don't care. I mean, tell them the truth about you because you're a primate, just like your kids are. And then tell them how to have responsible sex. I think that's what we really want from our children. We want our children to enjoy their sex, their bodies, and their sex lives, and want to do it in a responsible way so that they can enjoy it for their entire life. And I don't know too many Christians that are enjoying sex for their entire life. Our own research, but other research shows that if you're a very, very religious couple, the sex pretty much is dead after 15 years of marriage. Now, that's not 100%, but you notice it starts off really high and goes down, 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 down. Well, part of that is a function of religiosity. Don't have time to go into that. I do write about it in a chapter in the book, though. So I am a secular sexual, and I'd like you to take that term, think about it. What does it mean if you are a secular sexual? You're not a Christian sexual. You're not a Mormon. You're not a Muslim. You're a secular sexual. And what's that mean for your life and the joy that you can have with your own sexuality? So thank you, folks. I've enjoyed talking to you. I appreciate you laughing at my jokes, and I hope you were impressed with the duck penis. Most people are. So it looks like we've got a few minutes. I'll take a few questions, but first of all, here's an unpaid...
I'm 10 weeks away from getting my master's in family therapy.
Oh, right. Not from Jerry Falwell University, though.
No, thank God.
Thank goodness, okay.
Unfortunately, I am getting it from a private Christian university.
Oh, no. Okay, well, I won't say that.
It's a really good
But you're here tonight, so that's...
The problem is that in the last year that I have been doing client contact and doing my internship, I have had no fewer than 7 clients come in to deal with their porn addiction.
Oh, right.
So I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on
Yeah.
that.
Number one, pornography addiction is non-existent. I don't believe in it. Yeah, it doesn't. And let me tell you why. It's not porn addiction, it's religion addiction. It's guilt addiction. If people weren't taught guilt around pornography, they would probably use pornography however their body or mind needed or wanted to. But it's guilt. In my book, The God Virus, I talk about the guilt cycle. And religions always teach you what to be guilty of. And there's different guilt patterns. There's the Mormon guilt pattern, there's the Muslim guilt pattern, there's the Christian guilt pattern. But the one common theme is that guilt keeps people in church. And you'll notice that Baptists don't go confess their sins to Catholic priests. Catholics don't confess their sins to Muslim imams. You only get forgiveness for your sin at the place you learned the guilt in the first place. So that's how the guilt cycle works. Keeps you infected with a specific God virus. Well, most of these religions are